Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don. Joining me, as always, is my podcast partner in all-around good sport,
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Kevin Maxwell.
Yeah, good to see you.
Man, where you been all my life?
I know, right?
Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, fantastic. Another beautiful day in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
The day to play any sport you could possibly imagine. You can play right today in Scottsdale.
I'd like to be on the golf course today. It's nice.
Well, I think you're a pickleball guy, aren't you now?
I am a pickleball guy now. That's right. I am.
See about that. Well, we're talking sports today because today we get a chance to put on our sports gear and spend some time with Nathan Slater. He's the district athletic director for the Scottsdale Unified School District. And that means, Nathan, that you oversee athletics for all of the schools in the district.
That's correct. And thank you for having me, Don.
You
Kevin,
bet.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Man, big job. And you've been doing a big job for a long time. You're going on your 30th year. We won't tell anybody till the end of this podcast that I hear you're retiring too, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But 30 years on the job, what a track record you have. That's 3 decades.
Yeah.
That's a long time of service, man. That's for sure. Before we dig into all of that you've done over those 3 decades of work, tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? What inspired you to get into sports administration in the first place?
So I'm originally from Detroit, but I moved out here when I was young. I went to Yavapai.
Oh, okay.
Scottsdale School.
Wow.
I went to Supai, which is now Tonelli, and I graduated from Coronado in 1989.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went down to that school down south,
Yeah.
Tucson.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
We have mentioning names here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Came back and got a position teaching math and PE at Coronado, my alma mater.
Okay.
And taught there for 16 years, was the athletic director there for 11.
Wow.
Moved to Saguaro for 3, then became the principal at Arcadia for 3. And then in 2017, took this position as district athletic director, and I've been there ever since. So I've been a Scottsdale guy my whole life and always will be.
SUSD guy your whole life. Your whole career.
SUSD, you bet. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Wow. From the very beginning to the very end, right? Fantastic. What a career. So talk a little bit, and you've been around with a bunch of different jobs I didn't know about, including teaching and principal and all that. You've seen the school system just from about every single angle there is.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think part of the, when I look back at my career, my most enjoyable moments were coaching.
Well,
Being so close to the Parada del Sol is when I come back to the Parada, I see kids I coached that aren't kids anymore.
Yeah,
And we reminisce about seasons and games that I don't remember that they remember too,
Right.
who fumbled what or who caught what pass. And,
Right.
And those relationships are lifelong and they'll never go away. And they're worth a lot more than money.
No kidding. Yeah.
So I feel very fortunate of the relationships that I built over the past 30 years.
How lucky it would be to have that much time here where you can actually see those kids later and be a part of their lives all these years later.
Yeah, it's special.
Would you coach football? Was that what you coached?
I coached football and baseball.
Okay.
Yeah. I dabbled in a little bit of soccer, but not for very long.
Yeah.
At Coronado?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I did all my coaching at Coronado and teaching at Coronado. And then once I left for Saguaro, it was all admin after that.
Okay.
So tell me about your job today. What is it exactly that you do?
So my partner and I, Barb, she's been in the district 40 years. Her and I, we oversee our 14 schools that have athletics. We have 5 high schools, 5 comprehensive high schools that have full comprehensive athletic programs, and our 9 middle schools, which our middle school program is really robust when it comes to the offerings that we have. So we have obviously lots of teams. We have over, each school has an athletic director, so there's 14 site athletic directors, about 400 paid coaches that coach our kids, certainly.
Wow,
and
400?
Yeah. And then last past year, we had over 7,000 athletes. Now, those athletes could have participated in more than one sport, but overall, we had about 7,000 participants. We have trainers, bookstore managers, a lot of the folks. Our department is Barb and I, but I also say our department works at the school.
Everybody, right.
Yeah. We run schools. That's our job. And obviously our athletic programs exist on our campuses. So without those folks that work day to day with boots on the ground, Barb and I couldn't do what we do.
Of course. Right.
So it's a really great job because Barb and I love sports.
Yeah.
So
what's the most rewarding part of your job?
The most rewarding part, I think, again, goes back to relationships. After a lot of years, I mean, our job, we really have to solve a lot of problems. And sometimes it's not the easiest thing, but to be able to navigate with experience what is the best or what is at least the most logical and reasonable solution. So, but the most rewarding thing, I think, is we host quite a few events, Barb and I, and to see kids do what we like to watch, which is compete and play sports. That's the most rewarding thing, is those events that we put on are really special and a lot of fun.
Means the world to the kids too.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen that, Kevin, with some of the soccer programs and
Yeah.
things you've been involved with down in Coronado.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So one thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about academics for a second, because one thing I think that you're very fortunate about is there's a lot of accomplished academic athletes at SUSD, is there not?
There are. You bet.
And I had first chance to see that at one of your recent banquets, and that's just a really great story. Talk a little bit about that.
So certainly, we live in Scottsdale, and we have a lot of amazing, smart, driven kids that take advanced placement, honors classes, dual enrollment. Their GPAs, as you saw at our last banquet, were 4.8.
Right.
We've had a few
4.8.
5.0.
I didn't even know you could get one. I know how it works.
Yeah, I think
Jeez.
you have to multiply mine by 2 to get to some of these.
That's calculus or something, right?
Yeah. So we have our next banquet a week from tonight.
Yep.
And I think our GPAs are 4.8 and a 3.9.
Wow.
But we also have some minimum standards as well. We have a minimum of 2.0 and no Fs to be able to play. And we have a grade check calendar. So the athletic directors follow that. And so kids can fall below that and become ineligible, but have the ability to become eligible again. But we do have many, many students that those minimum requirements are never a factor, like the 5.0 kids.
Yeah.
And they're really, like you saw, Kevin, I didn't think you could get a 5.0.
Right,
to be honest.
right.
So
If you take about 3 of my years and add them all up, I might get to a 5.0.
That's great.
That's funny.
but we are not athlete students. We're student athletes.
Yes.
Right.
And so we preach that students come first, athletes come second. It's extra to the curriculum.
Yeah.
It's not the curriculum. And so you got to do your job in the classroom.
Extras in there for a reason. It means something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some of the most significant challenges facing high school athletics today, and how do you address them with what you're doing in your district?
So I think one of them is like in most cases is money. Inflation is hitting us when it comes to the cost of everything. The cost of busing, the cost of equipment, the cost of officials. And we generate our revenue in SUSD in Scottsdale with tax credit, which is the athletic participation fee, and the gate money that people pay when they come to our games. So we've been talking about addressing the inflation piece with generating more revenue, which would mean we will need to consider raising the cost to participate,
Right.
or the cost of a ticket. So that's a challenge, and that's coming to a point where it's definitely going to need to be addressed sooner rather than later. Officials is also an issue, and it's not because they're bad. We do have bad officials, but
That happens everywhere, right?
Now it's the number of them, and especially at our middle school level, is staffing our middle school sports with officials can be a challenge.
Is it hard to recruit, or?
It is, and it's getting harder, and that brings me to one of the other. Our culture is driven by sportsmanship, respect, and character in Scottsdale. That's our vision and our mission in the Scottsdale School District. We want to promote a culture of sportsmanship, respect, and character. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to hang banners. Everybody wants to be successful. But at the end of the day, what you teach kids on a day-to-day basis of being sportsmanlike, being respectful, having high character, sometimes isn't displayed when it comes to officials. And so when officials are disrespected, and they're going to make bad calls. I tell our coaches, since the very first game Caveman ever created, somebody had to officiate that game, and there was a bad call. And it was probably the same on both sides. So let's recognize that bad calls are part of what we do. And so ultimately, I think, the question about challenges is that sportsmanship throughout the spectators, the coaches, the kids, everybody involved really needs to be permeated so we can continue to what we do. Because if we don't have officials, we don't have athletics.
Makes me think you got to teach the parents sometimes some of those skills too, right?
Absolutely.
And remind them what the values are when they're yelling at the kids and whatnot. Yeah. Back to your budget for a second. So you've got schools all over the district, all your high schools. How do you balance the revenue pieces? Between maybe there's a school that generates a lot of ticket revenues versus one that does not. How does that all? Is it shared revenue? How does it work?
Right. So it works in a couple different ways. Is we do share revenue with our high schools. Our revenue is divided by 5.
Okay.
So that is equitable throughout our district.
Yeah.
other schools can generate more tax credit revenue based off free and reduced lunch percentages. And then also in our community, we have amazing community support. We have boosters that do come in and get us things that we would maybe want, not necessarily what we need, because we're fine getting the things that we need.
Yeah.
But they're amazing in getting some things that we would want. And so our community is a huge part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we certainly appreciate the community, our boosters, and the hard work that they put in on a day-to-day basis.
We've talked about some of the differences and the challenges you have in various parts of the city, where you may have boosters that generate a lot more revenue in Chaparral than you do at Coronado, for example. How does that all play off in terms of how you're trying to manage it?
Well, part of it is the way that we balance our gate money. And so, again, Coronado doesn't generate as much gate money, but we supplement them by dividing our gate by 5.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the booster support, say Chaparral or some of our other bigger schools. So, in Scottsdale, we all know that it's a wide north to south, not so wide east to west, but there's definitely a difference between the north and the south, and both have challenges and both have benefits.
I love the value statement. I was thinking about that with the question about how do you maintain a balance between the competitiveness and the overall well-being of student athletes, and I think it goes back to core values, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. I think the way that we talk about it with our athletic directors is if something that's not respectful or something's poor character or something's unsportsmanlike or all three, which can happen, then we need to act. We need to intervene. We need to do something. If a coach is being disrespectful, then we need to do something. If a student athlete decides to show some poor sportsmanship, then we need to intervene.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, ultimately how culture's built. Now, granted, we're certainly not perfect, and going back to your question on the challenges is ejections occur, and then that's something that we need to address when there is an ejection.
Yeah. How do you work with teachers, for example, and then other people in the school districts? What's the collaboration that you all come together with?
Well, the collaboration with them is for me and Barb. We don't certainly obviously engage directly with teachers very frequently, so it's a lot with the athletic directors on site with the expectation of what the actual grading practices are. Our grade check calendar is based off of a cycle where teachers post their grades every 4.5 weeks. So 4.5 weeks and then the quarter, 4.5 weeks, then the semester. And then ultimately student athletes are held accountable to that calendar, and those teachers are at times asked, hey, Bobby's got his 59 up to 65, so he doesn't have an F anymore. And so, so that collaboration is how we clear those student athletes. But again, teachers, coaches, they're the boots on the ground every day with these kids. And so we obviously got to respect what they do on a day-to-day basis, and we do.
That's great. Here's kind of maybe an off-the-wall question, but in college sports, we have NIL money now. Has that changed the mindset of any of your young athletes who got their eyes set on going to playing college at the next level or playing sports?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm certain that it does. We at the high school level obviously work under the umbrella of the Arizona Interscholastic Association,
right.
And we as member schools create bylaws. And one of them is an NIL bylaw. So
you have one. You've addressed it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it's been in
place.
So
that question wasn't completely crazy.
No, it's actually spot on, because there's certain things that hit us front and center, and NIL is front and center in our world right now. The bylaw for the AI has always been the same: as you can't make money off your name, image, and likeness if you're using school equipment or the school name. Now, if a student athlete wanted to, put their name on a billboard that had nothing to do with the school, had nothing to do with their sport, then that's certainly
really
yeah.
They can do that. Have you done that? Has any athlete made money outside of?
I would assume around the state there have been a few, but it's not as prevalent, I think, as you would imagine.
Okay.
So I am sure that there are people out there who are very athletically skilled who are thinking, how can I monetize my skill? Which
right.
is just like somebody who's super intelligent.
Right.
But yeah, and there's people I'm sure that are putting themselves in a position to be able to monetize their name, image, and likeness when the time comes.
Well, especially as they get ready to go to college.
Sure.
Because now that whole atmosphere has changed so drastically in college that I wonder if that's part of the decision-making process now for student athletes, whether they're looking at scholarships. When you're all stars, right? They're going to start looking at colleges. Where can I make the most money through all the new way of the college athletics?
Just look at the transfer portal.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So follow the money.
We don't have a transfer portal problem in SUSD, do we?
No. We do have our fair share of transfers that come in and out.
Yeah,
Really?
But but there is a penalty for transfers.
Is there? Yeah.
It's a half a season if you were to transfer from one school to another. Yeah.
Is that's against the AIA rule? Or?
That's an AI rule. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense too. Talk about technology. I mean, and they're 30 years on the job. The world has changed drastically overnight due to technology. How has technology affected your job?
Well, I make the joke when I started teaching, I had a piece of chalk and a chalkboard.
Yeah.
I didn't have a phone, a TV. I didn't have anything in my
There
classroom.
was no internet back
Yeah,
then.
there's no internet. So we've come a long way. Athletically, we've done a lot of things. We have National Federation Pixel-Lot cameras in our gyms and in our stadiums so that people around that can't come to the game can get a subscription and watch those games.
Oh, really?
Right. We use Huddle, which is a super tool for our coaches. Also, we have used a system called Register My Athlete. Back in my athletic directing days, we used to take registrations, which a registration is a physical and a parent consent, and there's a lot of paperwork. We were killing a lot of trees. So we transitioned to a system called Register My Athlete, which has been fantastic. It's a super simple, efficient way to track our registrations. And also GoFan is an electronic ticketing system. So we used to be all cash based. We didn't you couldn't come to the gate with a credit card. It was all cash,
Sure.
which was dangerous. We needed a lot of police, especially in football games,
right.
to navigate that. So we continue to progress athletically with electronics, and so if you're not moving with it, then you're behind.
Yeah.
I'm curious, just from a personal standpoint, all the years that you've had there in various positions, you've seen a lot of great athletes come out of SUSD.
Question.
Right?
I was thinking
Yeah.
like DJ Foster and guys like that.
Yeah, talk about some of the ones that you're most proud of, or the ones that most stand out the most to you that have had success beyond SUSD athletics.
So some of them that come to my mind is we had a couple baseball, football kids at Coronado. One is J.D. Durbin, who played baseball for the Phillies. He was probably the best athlete that I ever coached.
Really?
Lou Marson was a tremendous catcher and football player as well. So if you look them up, they both played in the majors. And then my first year at Saguaro, I met DJ Foster.
Right.
And I didn't know him from a can of paint. And he was the absolute most respectful human being that I think I've ever been around. Mr. Slater, and I say, DJ, not to call me Nathan or anything, but he was just the salt of the earth. And then I watched him play, and I knew he was good.
Yeah.
But I watched him play a football game where he scored 10 touchdowns in a game.
10 touchdowns.
Right. And he rushed for 500 yards. It was a first-round game against, I think it was Ironwood in 2011.
Wow.
And I went to him after the game. I go, DJ, because I had come from Coronado.
Yeah.
And Coronado, that's a great season for, Now, granted, but we also would have lots of different kids that would run the ball, not because we had multiple kids that had to play both sides of the ball. DJ was certainly just a one side of the ball player. So DJ and also Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I was just saying
Christian Kirk was is just a really respectful kid and young man, I shouldn't say kid, at the time, and he wasn't a kid then. So I'd say those four most are the ones that pop out to me that I got to know intimately and talk to about things that weren't just sports, like the prom or a girl or a class or just got to know them outside of what they do athletically.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And they're models for your motto, right? Respect and right.
Absolutely.
They're carrying that mantra for you.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that over time that those three things were influenced on my mind by those kids.
Sure. So can you spot a kid early on, a freshman, for example, freshman or sophomore, can you spot talent early on?
Yeah. I think, the old saying, it's not it's not the X's and the O's. It's the Jimmys and the Joes and the Janes and the Joannes. Is the players were the what win games,
Right.
And so you can. And depending on the sport, I'm certainly no expert when it comes to certain sports, but when you see a kid whose body just looks different or moves different and is faster or just throws harder, you can tell.
Yeah. So then you target them, right? So as they advance in grades, that you're making sure they're getting a chance to use their full athletic ability, right?
Absolutely, and hope that they play more than one sport, which these days isn't the norm.
Is it fewer and fewer they're doing that?
Yeah, I think, and especially at the bigger schools, is a school with 200 football players, let's say, and 80 baseball players. You may have to pick one. Mm-hmm. A school that say has 30 volleyball players and 30 basketball players. They may be able to play both. So it just kind of depends on the size of the school. But going back to the NIL question, is the specializing of a sport to monetize is not uncommon.
That's the mindset behind it, right? That's why they're kind of going down to playing one sport to focus, so they can maximize their opportunities.
Absolutely, or they'll pick, hey, I'm good at this one, but I'm really good at that one, so I'm going to pick the one that I have a potential to move to the next level, and potentially at the cost of only playing one.
Who's out there right now in maybe the college ranks that graduated from SUSD that we're going to be hearing about for a while? Anybody come to mind?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, we've got a lot of pro guys out there right now. Mark Andrews and so obviously Brock went to a different school. So
Brock went to Perry.
Yeah, Perry. He went to Perry. I lost my mind there for a second.
That's okay. I know because my grandson just graduated from Perry this week or next week, and he's the pride of Perry.
Yeah, my son's got a little list going on. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. I'd love to see your name on there.
Yeah. Talk about your appointment to the AIA, because you're on the board there. Is that right?
Right. So the AIA works for us.
Okay.
So we make the rules and they enforce them generally. So I served on boards, the 4A conference board. I was the president of the 5A board for many years. And then kind of like our governing board or a school district governing board, there's an executive board at the AIA. So this past year I was elected onto that position. So we get to hear a lot of the things that don't go exactly right in our state. We had those followed the news that we had an issue with some Desert Edge coaches, and those are the types of things that come to us. And so that experience is valuable, I hope, because we ultimately want Scottsdale schools to follow the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the respectful thing to do. The rules are in place for a reason. And so that experience helps, I think, try to keep us out of trouble. Now, there have been times that, sure, we've had our fair share of violations that we have to write up to the AIA, but the executive board is the ones that ultimately make the decisions on any potential penalties.
So we got to mention an award you just recently got too, right? A Hall of Fame award for the Arizona Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Say that 5 times fast. Hall of Fame, man. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. It's we were talking before in our little world of big deals. It's kind of a nice deal, and we've got 4 in Scottsdale that all mentored me at some point. Bob Keller from Saguaro, Joe Court, who is truly my mentor from Coronado, and then Steve Harris from Desert Mountain. Those are the 3 from Scottsdale that have been inducted, and so it's an honor. And I feel fortunate that my career was honored with my peers voting me into that honor. So it's humbling, and
No question, well deserved for sure.
And that comes from building relationships, and I can tell you're pretty good at building relationships.
Well, thank you.
Right.
We try. I mean, it doesn't always work, but we do our best.
So you're nearing the end of your term. You're going to retire after the school year, right?
That's the plan. Yeah.
well,
Now, we still continue in the capacity of the AIA, or no?
It depends. It depends on what happens moving forward. So there's a potential that I do move from that position at the AIA, and there's a potential that I would continue. Right. It's just kind of dependent on what happens from here. It's still May.
Yeah.
The heat hasn't hit us yet, so that's coming.
Bittersweet moment, though, to look back on 3 decades of service to one school district, all your career being in Scottsdale, which is so awesome. And that's pretty rare, I think, too. Although you mentioned a couple other people have been here a long time, too, right?
Yeah, we've had Barb, my assistant.
Barb, right,
Well, I shouldn't say she's my assistant. She's my partner.
Yeah.
And she's had 40 years.
40 years. Yeah.
All at SUSD or?
All in SUSD.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like Scottsdale. You come here, you stay here, man, right?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your plans after retirement?
Well, we were joking I may go to San Diego and not come back.
Never come back. Never come
you go.
back.
Yeah. No, my daughter's going to college. My son plays football and baseball at Arcadia, so I'll certainly stay involved within Scottsdale. But what the future holds is to be determined.
Now you can go become just nothing but a fan when you go to Arcadia football games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, they had a great year last year. It was fun to watch. 12-1 and
that's
state
right.
semis. And
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they were 10-0. They 12-0.
Yeah.
And then lost to Yuma Catholic down in Yuma in the state semi. So
I guess it's because the schools are all different sizes. Are they different conferences then, or different?
yeah, for high schools.
Chaparral the biggest?
Chaparral, I think, is just a hair smaller than Desert Mountain now.
Okay, so is Desert Mountain, what, they 5A or?
It depends on the sport. It's really kind of complex. In football, Saguaro and Chaparral are 6A schools. That's
Okay.
the biggest classification. And then Desert Mountain is 5A. Arcadia is 4A, and then Coronado is 2A. So, and then as you get into individual sports, it goes by divisions and sections, and it gets complex. The AIA classifies football a little bit different. It's based off of performance over the past 3 years, whereas the other sports are based off of enrollment. So,
Nathan, really appreciate you taking time with us today. Congratulations on a career. This is a remarkable career, 30 years, Hall of Fame, retirement coming up soon. So it's just, I feel fortunate that we were able to get Nathan in the studio today just to catch up with you while you still have a few weeks left on the job. So congrats, Nathan. Thanks for everything you've done to Scottsdale schools, and also to our community. You have a lot to be proud of, and we sure thank you for that.
yeah. And Don, Kim, thank you for the opportunity. And as I say at the end of every banquet, go SUSD, go Scottsdale.
That's right.
Let's keep it going, man. Go Scottsdale, and that's our motto anyway. So go Scottsdale. So, and thanks to all of you for listening and for saying go Scottsdale with us. See you next week for our latest edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.
Yeah.